everybody, welcome back to Traveling Root Beer. Sorry I haven't been posting like I should be. Just been really busy lately, getting the final stuff ready for our trip, our big trip. And there's been some pretty exciting developments. We got our plane tickets, got a little more idea of the beginning itinerary, got some loose ends tied up and whatnot. But today I wanted to do a video on my top 5 favorite states and my top 5 least favorite states. I've been to over half the U.S. states, and I've got pretty good experience in quite a few of them, so I figured this would be a good video for those of you living in the United States who haven't traveled around the other states very much, or maybe those of you who live outside of the United States who would like to know what good states to go to, at least based on my opinion. Okay, so we're going to start with the top 5 favorite. Florida. I know, sounds overrated, and for a long time I thought so too. I'd been to Florida 4 times in my youth and didn't really enjoy it very much, but I took a trip with my wife last year before we were married that kind of changed my mind about it. Disney World, what can you say? That right there, that'll say right there. Orlando, such an awesome city, a lot of different things to do around there. Of course, Florida is nice weather. There's no shortage of beaches around there. It's a peninsula. Got to make it to the list. Okay, so next is Minnesota. And I know it's the extreme opposite of Florida, but it's actually more my type of thing. Very good for hiking, walking around. You know, you could probably even do some climbing out there if you went to the right places, I guess. You know, very foresty and mountainy. Very cold, but all around great state. Gotta love Mall of America. Spent a little bit of time in Minnesota a couple years ago and went back a year and a half ago for a trip to Mall of America. So that puts it at number 4 on my list. Number 3, New York State. All I have to say is New York City, New York City, New York City. No matter how overrated that sounds, I'm telling you, if you're from a city that is at least 500,000 people or more, then you probably don't have quite the effect that New York City would have. But for those of you who come from a more rural area like me, I come from a town of less than 7,000 people, and the nearest city is 140,000 people. New York City is everything it's been cracked up to be. Other good things about the state is New York State is just a beautiful state. Up north, you've got the rolling hills and forests and easy access to Niagara Falls and Canada. It's awesome. The whole state's really awesome, so I'll put that at a high spot on my list. Number 2 is Wyoming, and it's really tough for me not to put Wyoming number 1 because Wyoming, I lived in Wyoming after I got out of high school, and it was my first real experience with living on my own. And it was so radically different than what I grew up in here in Indiana. I love it. I love Wyoming. It can get extremely cold, and I mean, you got 9 months of winter practically, but at least some of the year is mild and temperate. Wyoming is awesome for a lot of reasons. Obviously, the outdoors, you know, the fresh air. It's one of the least touched states eco-wise. Light population. A lot of wildlife. So Wyoming definitely earns a top spot. Alright, here's the state that stopped Wyoming from being number 1. Colorado. Colorado is awesome. The reason why it's number 1 and beats Wyoming is it has all the naturey stuff that Wyoming has, for the most part. And it still has that urban feel to it. If you go to Denver, and you got a great city right there. You can see the Rocky Mountains from almost any point in the city if you're up high enough. It's not hard to go from a nice urban environment to outdoorsy. And it's also very easy access to Wyoming, so that is the one thing that gives it the edge over Wyoming, is that you can get to Wyoming easily and then still be a really cool state. So that's my top 5. I'm going to go to my bottom 5, I guess you could say, or top 5 worst states. And I don't mean any offense to anyone who lives in these states. I mean, there's great people everywhere, and I've met great people from every one of these states, and this is not to say that there aren't things that I enjoyed about these states, but there has to be just like there has to be a top 5, there has to be a bottom 5. So the first on my list is Kansas. Now, no offense to Kansas. In fact, the only reason why you're even making it to my list is because you pretty much have nothing. If there's somebody from Kansas watching this video, please leave a message and let me know what's great about Kansas. My only time spent in Kansas was in transit, coming from east to west to go to Colorado and Wyoming. And I rode a bus for hours and hours and hours and hours both ways. So I really don't know what all you have to offer besides what I saw Kansas. So that earns you number 5 on my list. I'm going to tell you a little story. My great-great-grandfather, Benjamin, came from Tennessee to Indiana in the 1920s with his daughters to find a better life. To Indiana. Yeah, that's how bad Tennessee was in the 20s. And I'm not a big fan of Tennessee now. They've got Nashville, which destroyed what country music was supposed to be. And they've got red mud. Yeah. And they have Lookout Mountain. I mean, feel free to comment and let me know a good reason to like Tennessee. Thank you. Okay, number 3 on my list is very tough not to put at number 2 or 1. I get a lot of flack for this one because I do know people who live in Alabama, and I got a good friend who just moved there recently, so I don't want to hate on it too much. But what can I say, though? Reasons to not like Alabama. They're behind on the times, their education system's all jacked up, but that's pretty much anywhere in the country anyway, but it's really bad there. Their labor laws are all messed up, and everything you can think of, you know. The one redeeming quality that Alabama has that stopped it from getting number 2 or 1 on the list is the fact that they have Gulf Shores, Alabama, and Mobile, Alabama, which are both awesome, awesome cities. So I got to give them some credit there, and they're vastly different than the rest of the state. So that's why it didn't make any higher on my list. Number 2, Illinois. Why did I put Illinois as number 2 on my list, and it's right next to Indiana, so they should be vastly similar? Well, because Illinois pretty much sucks, and I'm referring to everything south of Peoria. Doesn't seem like there's much going on there. It's everywhere I go, it's like people are walking around kind of in a daze. It's almost like people aren't even living the same life they are in the rest of the country. Everything seems so far apart. Yeah, there's some nice wilderness, but it's really not much different than what you can get here in Indiana, or even Kentucky for that matter. The one redeeming quality that stops Illinois from being higher on the list is the fact that it has Chicago. Chicago is an awesome city. So, yeah, that's why it's number 2 on my list. Okay, number 1 on my list of worst states in the United States. Just making sure that I wrote this correctly. West Virginia. West Virginia is the worst state I have been to. Now, honestly, I'm only mentioning states, for the most part, that I've spent significant time in. Not just states that I've been in and passed through. The one exception to this rule is West Virginia. I only spent maybe 3 or 4 hours in West Virginia. And the reason why it gets the exemption and lands the number 1 spot is because I honestly believe that I've seen everything there is to see in West Virginia. West Virginia is famous for being the most depressed place in the United States. And there's good reason for that. A couple of months ago, my friend and his girlfriend asked me what there is to do in West Virginia because they were taking a trip there. I advised them that they go straight through West Virginia and go on to regular Virginia because it's a much better state. And it is. I'm sorry for any of you West Virginians there. I mean, if you're from West Virginia and you do have something to say, I honestly want to know what would be a good reason to visit West Virginia. Please, I want your input. All 5 of these bad states. All 5 of these bad states. Give us a good reason to visit your state. Okay, I'm going to give 1 honorable mention state. And that state is... Louisiana. Oh, Louisiana. My grandfather was from Louisiana, and I went to Louisiana a lot when I was a kid. Louisiana has a lot of great things about it. I loved Baton Rouge. I loved going to the mall there back in my early teens. It was really a cool trip. I tried Popeye's chicken for the first time there, and Popeye's chicken's the shiz. Everybody knows that. But it's also insanely hot and has some of the same bad qualities as states like Alabama, Tennessee, Mississippi, whatever. I'm not going to hate on the South too much. There's a lot of reasons to love the South. I'm not going to get into all that. But Louisiana, I just couldn't figure out where to put you on this list. I thought about putting you at number 5, and I thought about putting you at number 5 of the worst states. So I'm going to give you the honorable mention state of leaving me undecided. Thank you, Louisiana. Okay, so that's it for this video. Thank you for watching Travel and Root Beer. I hope you can tune in and watch some of my videos that I'll be putting up soon. I will be putting up more frequently, I promise. But until we get to traveling, we're not going to have a lot of real rich content. Well, I shouldn't say we're not going to have rich content. It's going to be rich, but it's not going to be rich with the travel stuff. It's going to be more of the root beer side of things. I'm going to have a few more philosophical videos coming up here soon, so stay tuned for those if you're interested. But right now, if you would, please like, comment, and subscribe.